Today in Across the Fence, introducing students around Vermont to their neighbors who farm. A statewide program is making connections between the classroom and the field in an old-fashioned way. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Farm to School takes on a whole new meaning when coordinators for the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont play matchmaker. They pair up classrooms with local farmers in a year-long correspondence that often culminates with an in-person visit. Across the Fence's Rebecca Gollin tells us more.
Kids at Fat Toad Farm in Brookfield. The family-owned goat dairy milks about 60 goats and turns that milk into caramel sauce. A recent field trip brought a different kind of kid to the farm.
Hi. Good. Well, it's going to be an exciting day here, let me tell you.
These kids are students at Braintree Elementary School. They've come to the farm to meet some friends they've been hearing about for a while.
So my name is Judith. You probably recognize my name from all the writings and all the great questions you've had. You guys know
Judith started the year by sending us a letter telling us about Fat Toad Farm, and there were some pictures, and then it just caused these kids to just come up with all these questions that they had based on the information she gave us.
The students have spent the year exchanging letters with Judith Irving, who runs Fat Toad Farm with her family.
They sent back a series of questions, and so then I would send back a letter and just answer all those questions, and they would then send a letter back that had new questions. They were very interested in a lot of detail and a lot of the, I would say, working knowledge of the farm. So it was kind of fun. It was a lot more than, well, how many goats do you have? It was like, how does this actually work?
The letter writing is part of the Farmer Correspondence program, which is overseen by the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, or NOFA. The program is designed to expand local agricultural awareness by matching up farmers with classrooms in their community and establishing a pen-pal relationship.
We were writing letters and asking questions about how much milk they produce or how they stay warm in the winter and that kind of stuff.
And then we asked one about the parasites, about how do you check them for parasites. And then we asked one about their caramel, how do you make it, and how much milk do you need to make a little jar of caramel. And then we asked one that was, do you get triplets or even quadruplets or twins often? Is that really good or is that a bad thing?
So we're really trying to get farmers to talk about things that, what are you doing in the winter when we can't see you? What's going on?
Abby Nelson is the Agricultural Education Coordinator at NOFA. She says that the main purpose of the program is to establish ties between students, farmers, and the communities in which they live.
If we're going to grow the farm economy, if we're going to have more people eating healthy foods, and etc., the most likely avenue for that is for people to value the food. And how does that happen? It happens by having a relationship either with the food, with who made the food, or who grew the food. And the more that we understand where the food comes from and the people involved in it, the more valuable the food is.
Like all farmers, Irving does not have much free time. She says that connecting with the students gives her the opportunity to take a moment and reflect.
So just ask questions like, do you like being a farmer? Like, whoa, I guess I should think about that before I answer it. What do I like? What don't I like? I mean, they just really want to know.
And it's just been a great way to open kids' eyes up to the world of farming.
Zinnia had a baby this morning.
The class couldn't make it to the farm during kidding season, so Irving sent them some videos of the goats giving birth. That's just one example of how the students learned a lot about what's going on at the farm.
Thanks to the miracles of iPhones, we took a lot of videos of goats actually having kids. And so I sent those to them, and they had a lot of questions about how all that stuff really works, which was really great because a lot of people don't even know how to put the concept of goats, kids, and milk together in the same sentence. But these kids were like, well, what's your average number of deaths per year? And what happens to the placenta?
Over 80 farmers around the state participate in the Farmer Correspondence program each year, trading letters with around 100 classrooms. What was today like?
It was neat to see what the process of making the caramel is and seeing all the goats and how much milk they produce in the creamery.
Favorite part of the trip?
I really liked visiting the caramel room to see how the caramel is made because I really love caramel.
And they pour it into that, do you see that sort of big silver box?
The letter exchange instills a new understanding for these students about what everyday life is like for their farming neighbors.
It's great. I mean, it really, I can just see just from today how excited they are. And, I just asked them now, how many of you see yourselves as when you get older doing some sort of a small scale farming like this to make a living? And, over half of them had their hands up, which is good to know. I mean, not that it's going to come true, but at least it's that you're putting that notion in their head that there's other things that they can do with their life that does involve working on the land.
Using pen and paper to bring together the farmers of today and the students who might just be the farmers of tomorrow, and strengthening communities at the same time.
Okay, so we're just going to walk along that thing and back, and then we're going to...
The Farmer Correspondence program is building relationships that are bound to grow. In Brookfield, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. Joining me now are Abby Nelson from NOFA, Vermont, Eugenie Doyle of Last Resort Farm in Moncton, and Ruth Beecher, a teacher at Robinson Elementary in Starksboro. Thanks so much for being with us today. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
Now, Abby, how long has the Farmer Correspondence program been going on?
It's been going on for 2000, so we're into our 15th year, I guess.
And the program is run by a statewide network of farm-to-community mentors. Who facilitates the links between the farmers and educators, and who are these mentors and what do they do?
Well, the mentors, there's 9 of them. We have them regionally working. And what they do, it's a very, very part-time job. Most of them are women, most of them are farmers and or educators, and they're making connections between various community groups, organizations, members, and agriculture and farming. And so schools are an obvious place to make those connections, although they work with libraries during Ag Literacy Week in November and other community groups. But this is one of the programs that we've done every single year. And they basically sell the program. They might go with the brochure to teachers' meetings or drop them off at offices in schools. They talk with farmers, they call them, they visit them and try to explain the program. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're doing.
Now, Eugenie, how did you get involved and how did you get matched with Ruth's students?
I think I saw an ad in a NOFA newsletter asking for farmers who would be willing to write to classes and in the winter, mm-hmm. and I figured it was something I could do in the winter. I actually, since we are no longer dairy farmers, we're just produce farmers, we have more free time in the winter. Mm-hmm. And I write books during the winter as well. So I thought it would be a good match. And then I had written to other classes for a while in Shelburne and Ripton, and then wanted to do a class that was closer to home so that we could, closer to our home farm so that we could actually have a field trip to the home. I don't know how we got matched up, actually.
Abby matched us.
Yeah, I think it was because we focus on trying to get, as Ruth had said, to to get the classroom and the farm as close geographically as well as their interest and age group, because then they have the potential of visiting that farm with their families, or at least knowing who's in their community.
And also maybe, you mentioned community makes more of an impact if you know that it's the farm right down the road, or you drive by the farm every day, or maybe even buy produce from the farm.
Our school also gets food for our cafeteria from this farm, which
Nice,
is a really
that's
nice
perfect.
connection.
And
too.
so how did it go in the classroom?
Oh, it's amazing. The kids are so motivated to write, so it's definitely not any kind of an add-on, because the kids are so engaged in writing, and I let them write to Eugenie by themselves independently, or with a partner, or in a small group.
So you've actually incorporated this in your curriculum.
Absolutely. And they practice writing a friendly letter in a really authentic way. So.
And I know you brought a whole stack with some of your correspondence. Maybe you'd like to read a little bit about what some of the kids want to know about?
I brought the pile so that you could see that this is a paper project.
Right,
this
which is really important.
And these are kids, this is a 3-4 class. They're learning to write. Some of them are in cursive, some of them are not. Some of them have good spelling, some of them do not. But they're all just start out, Dear Eugenie. We're on a first name basis, me and the kids. And they, I usually write to them, I always write to them first in the fall. And then they respond with questions. So they'll write things back, I'm very happy to write to you. You have a lot of tricky math questions. And then they will, proceed to try to answer those tricky math questions, and then they'll usually tell me that they don't like them. And then they'll comment on things, they'll say, how many animals do you have? What are some other things that you sell? Other than things that I've mentioned. And then they'll say things like, Silas, that's my son, is really handsome, but don't tell him I said that. So these are definitely friendly letters.
Well, I think it's interesting, the math aspect, because you ask a lot of tricky questions, but that's something that you have to know if you're running a farm. It's a lot about the math.
Exactly.
And so the kids must be really excited to get these letters back.
They're very excited. And like Eugenie's first letter of this school year, she wrote, this week, November 10th through 17th, is called Agricultural Literacy Week. Agriculture is another word for farming, and literacy is another word for knowledge. So we are celebrating this week by starting to get some knowledge about farming. Here are a few questions to get you started. Hint, I bet you already know a lot about farming because you live in an agricultural community. List 5 different kinds of farms in Vermont, 3 different kinds of farms in Starksboro, and 3 of your favorite foods, and say what kind of farm produces them. Tricky question. See, they're not always math questions. Does all food come from farms? And then some of the kids were talking about Doritos and Oreos and how they don't come from farms. But she sends wonderful photographs as well of the farm, and always talks about the chickens and the cats and their workers. And one of the students in my class' sister is one of their farm workers. So it's really some nice connections. And
what do the kids get out of this? What do the students get out of this, do you think? What do they learn?
They learn so much. I mean, they learn that Eugenie's a person. She's also an author. One of my students who moved on to 5th grade read one of her books and wrote a whole book report about it and gave it to me. And she was tickled pink that she knew this person, this author and farmer. And I think they get all kinds of community connections. A lot of them go back to the farm after they're like in the summer and go strawberry picking and introduce their families to Eugenie. And of course they learn all about farming, but I think the personal connection is what really makes it.
Yeah, Eugenie, you don't have a lot of spare time. So it's quite an amazing thing that these farmers are taking the time to talk to the kids. Why do you do that?
Well, it is the off season for us. And I mean, I think that's different for the dairy farmers that participate, and they are putting in a special amount of dedication, I think. But why do it? Well, it's really fun, for one thing. I mean, the letters it's so great to get a packet of real letters in your mailbox, that are not bills.
So unusual these days.
That are not requests for money.
Right.
Yeah, it is. We always we talk about them as love letters, going back and forth. So that's really fun. And the kids themselves are just so engaged in farming and in food. They really love food, and they love the opportunity to talk about it, I think, in a letter, and to share what they're doing in school. I mean, they've done projects on life cycles, for example, and then we would talk about how that goes on the farm, how those play out on the farm. This year they were studying closed circuits, electrical circuits, and they asked me, were there any closed circuits on the farm? You know, so they really are trying to relate what they're doing in the classroom. I mean, they have a school garden as well. These are kids that are rich in agricultural teaching.
That's wonderful. Now, Abby, how can farmers or schools get involved if they're not already?
Well, they can call our office and ask for me, and that's 802-434-4122, or email me at Abby, A-B-B-I-E, at NOFAVT.org, and I will find out which Farm to Community Mentor is in their region and connect them. And the other thing I wanted to say is we do result in field trips with these letters. Teachers apply. We send about 20 to 25 school classrooms out to field trips, and we're always raising money for those field trips. And it's like $4,000 to $5,000 that we're raising every year. And so we're always looking for partners who would like to help us get more kids on farms.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today. It's a great program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's our story for today. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.